She cheated, so I gave her the life she wanted, without me. It all started so perfectly. In the beginning, Sarah and I were a match made in heaven. Both of us were young, driven, and full of ambition. We had big dreams and an even bigger desire to make something of ourselves. I remember when we first met, it was at a friend's party, a casual gathering, nothing special. But there she was, standing across the room, laughing with her friends, her eyes sparkling. The way she moved, the energy she gave off, it was magnetic. Without even realizing it, I was already making my way toward her. She looked up as I approached and smiled, and it felt like the entire room faded away. We talked for hours that night, sharing everything from childhood memories to our hopes for the future. By the end of the night, I knew this was something different. Something real, and little did I know, this woman, this incredible woman who had made my heart race from the first glance, would one day break me in ways I never could have imagined. Our relationship began to blossom quickly. We started dating not long after that night, and it felt like everything fell into place. We were inseparable. We did everything together. We spent weekends exploring the city, trying new things, cooking dinners at home, and talking until we fell asleep on the couch. She had this warmth, this energy that drew people to her. It was contagious. It felt like our lives were destined to collide, like fate had thrown us together in this perfect partnership. We bought our first apartment together. We saved every penny, worked long hours at our respective jobs, but it didn't matter because we were doing it for us. Together, I remember the feeling of excitement when we painted the walls of our new home, choosing every little detail as if it were the foundation of our future. We were building something real. It was everything I had ever wanted, a life that we were going to build together. Our relationship blossomed, and so did our lives. We were living the dream. Or so I thought. As the years passed, though, I started to feel the weight of change creeping in. It wasn't dramatic at first. Sarah became quieter, more distant, and I couldn't figure out why. I thought it was just a phase, maybe something to do with work, but it kept going. I tried to talk to her about it, but she always brushed it off, assuring me everything was fine. She was just tired, or stressed, she said. But I knew. Deep down, I felt it. The closeness we once had seemed to be slipping through my fingers. I tried everything to reconnect with her, but nothing seemed to make a difference. Despite my best efforts, things just felt off. It was as though we were living two separate lives under the same roof. We eventually got married, hoping it would bring us closer. I remember that day like it was yesterday. The way she looked as she walked down the aisle in her white dress. The smile on her face that seemed to radiate everything I had ever hoped for. I had always imagined that our wedding would be the culmination of all our dreams, and in that moment, I thought we had made it. The future was ours, but the cracks in our relationship continued to widen. I worked long hours, climbing the corporate ladder, trying to make something of myself. She, on the other hand, seemed to retreat into herself. I had no idea how much distance was growing between us, until it was too late. I kept thinking it was just a phase, that we'd reconnect eventually, but as the days turned into weeks, then months, I started to feel that nagging feeling in my gut. We were not the same. Then, one fateful night, everything came crashing down. I came home from work early, determined to surprise her with a nice dinner. It had been a while since we'd had one of those evenings where we just relaxed together. I wanted to remind her of the love we had once shared, so I decided to cook her favorite meal, set the table, light some candles, and try to bring us back to the place we once were. But as soon as I walked through the door, I heard voices coming from the bedroom. I froze. I wasn't sure what to think at first. Maybe she was talking on the phone or with a friend. But then I heard something else, a laugh. It was her laugh, but it was different, somehow. It was lighter, freer. My heart sank. I stood at the entrance, my hand on the doorknob, too afraid to open it. Something in my gut told me that whatever was happening behind that door wasn't right. But I opened it anyway, unable to stop myself. The scene that met me was like something out of a nightmare. There they were, Sarah, my wife, sitting on the bed, laughing with another man. And not just any man, our neighbor, Jake. I stood frozen in the doorway, unable to process what I was seeing. Jake had been one of my closest friends. We spent countless hours together, talking about life, supporting each other through rough patches. The man who was supposed to be my friend was now sitting on my wife's bed, laughing like they were the best of friends. Sarah's eyes met mine, but there was no shock in them. No surprise. It was as though she had been expecting me. I don't know what I was expecting, but it certainly wasn't this. She looked at me with such an empty, indifferent gaze. No guilt, no remorse. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice completely devoid of emotion, as if nothing was out of place. I couldn't speak. I couldn't find the words to even ask the questions I was dying to. My mind was spinning, my world unraveling. My friend, the one I had trusted, had been in my home, in my bed, with my wife. Jake, without any apology or sense of shame, stood up and started to leave. "Sorry, man," he muttered, as if it was no big deal. And just like that, he was gone. I stood there, motionless, as Sarah remained on the bed. She didn't even try to comfort me. Instead, she casually said, "Jake was just leaving." I don't know how long I stood there, paralyzed by the sight before me. I felt sick. I wanted to scream, to shout, to make her feel something, anything. But the words wouldn't come. She didn't apologize. She didn't seem sorry. She didn't even seem to care. "You've been distant," she said, as though it was the most natural thing in the world. I needed something more. More? What more could I have given her? I gave her everything. My time, my trust, my love. I worked long hours to give her the life she wanted. I thought we were partners in every sense of the word, but I was wrong. My chest tightened. The betrayal was suffocating, but I couldn't break down in front of her. I was angry, yes, but more than that, I was hurt beyond words. I looked at her, cold and detached, and said the words I never thought I'd say. "I want a divorce." Her face twisted slightly. She didn't even seem to be shocked. "Fine," she said in a flat tone. "It's over then." I left that night. I didn't stay to argue, didn't stay to beg for explanations. I couldn't. I was too broken. But something inside me, something dark, was beginning to take shape. This wasn't just about a failed marriage. This was about making sure she understood the consequences of what she had done. For the next few weeks, I didn't rush things. I took my time. I didn't want to make it a rash decision. I needed to plan. I needed to make her feel it. I wanted her to know the price of betrayal. I transferred all our shared finances into a private account. I knew how much she relied on our joint account for everything. Her shopping sprees, vacations, dinners out. I didn't just empty it. I made sure she couldn't touch a single penny. I didn't want her to starve or struggle to survive, but I wanted her to understand the weight of her actions. I wanted her to realize that her affair with Jake wasn't just a fling, it had cost her everything. And she wasn't going to live the life she had come to expect without paying for it. I canceled all the credit cards she used, too. The ones that she'd racked up with purchases for herself, the luxuries that had made her life so easy. No more shopping sprees. No more dinners out. The woman who had once been my partner was now going to have to face the reality of her choices. I kept the house. It was mine. I had worked for it. I wasn't about to let her continue living in it like nothing had happened. She could find her own place, figure out her next steps. She could deal with the aftermath of her actions. And she would. When I finally served her with the divorce papers, she was completely blindsided. The indifference she'd shown me when I caught her cheating vanished. Now, she was frantic, panicked, texting and calling me nonstop. She begged me to reconsider, to forgive her, but I had already made my decision. She had gotten what she wanted, a life without me. But it wasn't the life she had envisioned. It wasn't the freedom she had imagined. Now, she had to figure out how to survive without the man who had given her everything. She had to build her life from scratch, just like I had to do, only this time, she would do it without my help. She cheated, so I gave her the life she wanted, without me.